I bought a massive ranch expecting privacy and open land, but one morning I woke up to find 50 HOA homes built inside my property lines. Before I could even call my lawyer, the only road leading out of my ranch was suddenly blocked, as if someone was trying to trap me in. What happened next uncovered a secret deal between the HOA and a local official, and when the truth came out, their entire neighborhood was at risk of being wiped off the map. When I bought the ranch, I thought I was buying silence. 2,000 acres of rolling land, dusty roads, and a fence line that stretched farther than the eye could see. No neighbors. No HOA. No noise. Just wide open space and a single dirt road that led from the highway to my gate. The real estate listing called it undeveloped. That turned out to be a lie. The first hint came 2 weeks after I moved in. I was riding along the western fence line on an ATV, checking for damage, when I saw something that made me slam the brakes. Roofs. Not barns. Not sheds. Houses. Rows of them. Perfectly spaced. Fresh siding. Driveways. Mailboxes. Inside my ranch. I thought I was hallucinating. I checked my GPS. I checked the fence posts. I checked the deed map on my phone. Those homes were deep inside my property lines. I drove closer, heart pounding. There were at least 50 of them, maybe more, laid out in neat suburban rows like someone had picked up a neighborhood and dropped it in the middle of my land. Kids were playing in yards. Cars were parked in driveways. People were living here. On my ranch. I pulled over near a woman walking her dog. "Hey," I said. "Do you live here?" She nodded. "Yeah, Meadow Ridge Estates." "Do you know who owns this land?" She looked confused. "The HOA, I guess?" My stomach dropped. "There is no HOA here," I said. "I own this entire ranch." She stared at me like I'd told her the sky was fake. "That's impossible. We've lived here for years." I drove back to my house in a haze. I pulled the deed, the survey, the county parcel map. There it was in black and white. My ranch included every square inch where those houses sat. Someone had built an entire HOA neighborhood on my land without my knowledge. I called my lawyer. Then I called the county. Then I called the title company. Everyone said the same thing. They never had the right to build there. 2 days later, I got my first knock. A man in a polo shirt with a plastic HOA badge stood on my porch. "Sir, I'm with Meadow Ridge Estates," he said. "We've received reports you're interfering with community property." "Your community is sitting on my land," I replied. He smiled like he'd heard a joke. "No, it isn't." I handed him a copy of my deed. He didn't even look at it. "This neighborhood has been here for 8 years," he said. "You don't just get to claim it. You don't get to squat on 2,000 acres and pretend it's yours." That was the moment his smile vanished. "You should be careful," he said. "The HOA is very protective of its residents. Tell them to get off my ranch." He walked away without another word. That night, something happened. The only road, the single dirt road that led from my ranch gate to the highway, it was blocked. A steel gate had been installed across it, with a brand new lock. I stood there staring at it under the headlights, disbelief turning into anger. They hadn't just trespassed. They'd cut off my exit. I called the sheriff. By the time he arrived, the HOA representative was already there. "This gate is on HOA property," the man said calmly. The sheriff looked at me. "Sir, is that true?" "No," I said. "That road has been on my land for 50 years. The HOA man shook his head. "We have permits." "Show them," I said. He didn't. Instead, he smiled. "This is a civil matter." The sheriff sighed. "You'll need to resolve it in court." Then he left. I was standing on my own ranch, with 50 HOA homes behind me, and no way out. That was when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a mistake. This was a takeover. And they thought I was already trapped. I spent the entire night staring at that locked gate. Every few minutes, headlights would sweep across it as cars from Meadow Ridge passed through, the very road that was now blocking me in. They had access. I didn't. That wasn't an accident. That was a message. At sunrise, I drove my truck right up to the gate and got out. The lock was heavy-duty, brand new, bolted into a steel post that hadn't been there yesterday. Someone had worked fast. I called my lawyer again. They can't do that, he said. Blocking legal access to private property is illegal. Tell that to the HOA, I replied. Before I could even hang up, 2 SUVs rolled up from the Meadow Ridge side. Out stepped the same HOA rep from the night before, and a woman with a clipboard and a practiced smile. "Good morning," she said. "I'm the HOA president." "Then you're trespassing," I replied. She ignored me. We had to secure the community road. There was a safety concern. "My ranch road is not your community road." She tilted her head. "Our residents have used it for 8 years. And I've owned this land for 1, I said. "That doesn't make it yours." She smiled tighter. "We have development rights." "On my ranch?" "Yes." I pulled out my phone and showed her the county map. "Your entire subdivision is built on my deed." She glanced at it for less than a second. "Those records are wrong." I stared at her. "That's not how land works." "Well," she said calmly, "we've already filed to correct it." That was the moment my blood went cold. "You filed what?" "A boundary adjustment. A quiet title claim. Standard procedure." "You're trying to steal 2,000 acres. "We're protecting our homeowners," she replied. I stepped closer. "You built 50 houses on land you didn't own. And now people live there," she said. "You wouldn't evict 50 families, would you?" There it was. Not a mistake. A strategy. They had built first and planned to let the people become a shield. "Unlock the gate," I said. "That road belongs to Meadow Ridge," she replied. "You put it on my land. Then sue us." She turned and walked back to her SUV. And the gate stayed locked. I called the county planning office. Then zoning. Then the state land registry. Every call led to the same answer. There was never a permit for Meadow Ridge to build there. So how did they? The answer came from a retired clerk who still knew how things worked. "They filed under a different parcel number," she told me quietly. "One that borders your land." "They shifted the map?" "Looks like it. Someone in the system had approved it anyway." Which meant corruption. By noon, HOA trucks were driving through the gate like it was theirs. Landscaping crews, garbage trucks, school buses, all using my road. All pretending I didn't exist. I drove up to the Meadow Ridge office, a prefab building at the edge of their neighborhood. The HOA president was waiting. "We warned you," she said. "This is our community. You're on stolen land. Then take us to court. That's the plan." She leaned closer. "Just remember, you can't leave until then." That was the first time she said it out loud. They had trapped me. But what she didn't know was that trapping someone on their own land turns every single law in their favor. And I was about to use every one of them. By the third day, the gate still hadn't moved. It stood there like a challenge. Bright steel, heavy lock, and the unmistakable message that the HOA thought they owned not just the road, but me. I woke up early and drove straight to the county records office. If they had altered parcel maps, I was going to see it with my own eyes. The clerk on duty looked nervous when I gave her my ranch address. She typed slowly, then frowned. "That's strange," she muttered. "What?" I asked. "There are 2 active parcel maps for this land." My blood went cold. "That's not possible." "It shouldn't be," she said. "But there's one from 8 years ago, and another filed last year that shows Meadow Ridge inside its own boundary." "Who filed it?" She clicked again. "A development group called Ridgestone Holdings." That name meant nothing to me, but it meant everything. Because Meadow Ridge wasn't just an HOA. It was a shell. Ridgestone Holdings had filed fake boundary adjustments years before I ever bought the ranch. They shifted lines just enough to make it look like their development was legal, then quietly sold off the homes to families who had no idea they were buying houses on stolen land. It was land fraud on a massive scale. I printed everything: map, filings, names, signatures, and one name kept appearing over and over again. A county zoning official. Someone on the inside had approved it. I drove back to the ranch with a folder full of proof. At the gate, 2 HOA trucks were parked beside it. Workers were installing cameras now, pointing them inward. At me. The HOA president stepped out. "You can't install surveillance on my property," I said. She smiled. "This is community infrastructure. You're committing felonies." She leaned closer. "Then call the police." So I did. When the sheriff arrived, I handed him the folder. "These people altered county maps," I said. "They're blocking my only legal access road." He flipped through the papers, his expression changing. "This is serious," he said quietly. The HOA president interrupted. "This is a civil boundary dispute." "No," the sheriff said. "This is potential criminal land fraud." Her smile vanished. "I need a supervisor," she snapped. "And I need this gate opened," the sheriff replied. For the first time, the lock was cut. The gate swung open. But the war was just starting. 2 hours later, Ridgestone's lawyers showed up with an emergency injunction, claiming they had easement rights over my road. I laughed. "You can't get an easement on stolen land." They tried anyway. That night, 50 homeowners held a protest at the edge of my ranch. Signs, chanting, cameras. They had been told I was trying to evict them, that I was the villain. I walked out with a megaphone and the county map. "You were sold homes on stolen land," I shouted. "I'm not your enemy, the HOA is." Some of them looked confused. Some looked scared. And some started asking questions. By morning, the story was everywhere. An entire HOA built illegally inside a private ranch. A blocked exit. A corrupt county official. The state stepped in. Surveyors arrived. Investigators arrived. The zoning official was placed on leave. And Ridgestone Holdings went silent. The gate never closed again. Because now the truth was out. And when land thieves get exposed, they don't get to hide behind fences. The gate stayed open after the sheriff cut the lock. But the tension didn't. If anything, it got worse. Now Meadow Ridge knew they couldn't bully me quietly anymore. The cameras they had installed were still pointed at my land, and their security trucks kept driving past my ranch house like they were trying to remind me I was surrounded. But something had changed. They weren't confident anymore. They were scared. By the next morning, 2 white vans rolled onto my property. Surveyors. State level, not county. The kind that only show up when things are very serious. Behind them came 3 more vehicles, investigators from the State Land Commission and a legal task force. Ridgestone Holdings had officially been flagged. The HOA president tried to intercept them at the edge of Meadow Ridge. "You can't come in here," she snapped. "This is private community property." One of the investigators didn't even slow down. "Actually," he said, "this is a crime scene." Her face drained of color. They walked straight past her and began staking out property lines across my ranch, including straight through the middle of Meadow Ridge. Homeowners gathered, confused and worried. "What's happening? Why are there survey flags in my yard? Is something wrong?" I stepped forward with the county maps in my hands. "You were sold homes on land that doesn't belong to the HOA," I said loudly. "This entire neighborhood was built inside my ranch boundaries." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The HOA president tried to speak, but the investigators shut her down. "Ma'am, you need to stop," one said. "You're under investigation for land fraud and conspiracy." People stared at her. Some looked angry. Some looked betrayed. Some looked terrified. That's when the truth finally broke through. Ridgestone Holdings had taken out development loans on land they didn't own. They'd used altered parcel maps and a corrupt zoning official to get building permit. Then they sold homes to families who had no idea the ground under their houses was stolen. And now it was all collapsing. The state froze all HOA assets by noon. Bank accounts, property funds, even their legal defense budget. Ridgestone's lawyers tried to intervene, but once criminal fraud is involved, money doesn't talk anymore. That afternoon, a state judge issued an emergency injunction. No construction, no sales, no HOA authority, no property enforcement. Meadow Ridge was officially neutralized, and suddenly 50 homeowners realized their HOA had lied to them. A town hall was held that evening in their community center. I was invited, along with state officials and investigators. It was tense. People were angry, scared, confused. "Are we losing our homes?" someone asked. "No," the state representative said. "But your HOA and developer are facing serious charges." "What about the land?" another asked. That's when all eyes turned to me. "I own it," I said calmly. "But I'm not here to evict anyone. I'm here because someone used my land, and your lives, as part of a crime." The room went quiet. "I didn't build those houses," I continued. "They did. They sold you something they had no right to sell." A woman started crying. A man stood up. "So what happens now?" "The court will decide," the investigator replied. "But Ridgestone and the HOA are done." The HOA president wasn't there. She'd been detained for questioning earlier that day. The next morning, Ridgestone Holdings filed for bankruptcy. Their offices were raided. Their files seized. Their executives went silent. The zoning official who approved the altered maps resigned under investigation. And the HOA board? They were scrambling to save themselves. Meanwhile, I finally drove freely down my own road again. No gate, no cameras, no guards. For the first time since this started, I could leave my ranch. And for the first time, the HOA realized something terrifying. They didn't own me. They didn't own the road. And they sure as hell didn't own the land they built on. The takeover had failed. And now they were the ones trapped, not behind a gate, but behind the truth. The ranch didn't feel the same after the state arrived. Survey crews in neon vests walked my field. Government SUVs rolled past the gate. Drones flew overhead mapping every inch of dirt the HOA had stolen. Meadow Ridge's neat little streets suddenly looked small and fragile against the truth. Because paper beats fences. 3 weeks after the investigation started, the results came in. Ridgestone Holdings never owned a single square foot of my land. Every permit they filed had been approved using falsified boundary data. Every house in Meadow Ridge was technically built on private property without permission. Which meant something huge. Those 50 homes legally didn't exist. The HOA president showed up at my gate one last time. No clipboard. No smile. Just panic. "You can't do this," she said. "There are families there. Children." "I didn't put them on stolen land," I replied. "You did." "We can make a deal," she said quickly. "We'll buy it. We'll make it right." "You had 8 years to do that." She swallowed. "Ridgestone is bankrupt. We don't have that kind of money. That's not my problem." 2 days later, the state issued a formal order. All construction inside my ranch boundary was illegal. All land titles issued by Ridgestone were void. All HOA authority over the area was terminated. Meadow Ridge ceased to exist. The homeowners were furious, but not at me. They were furious at the people who had lied to them. Class action lawsuits exploded. Ridgestone's executives vanished. The zoning official who approved the maps was arrested for fraud and bribery. And the HOA president? She resigned before she could be fired. A month later, the first bulldozers rolled in. Not to destroy homes, but to remove roads, curbs, and infrastructure the HOA had illegally installed on my land. The neighborhood began to unravel. Some families relocated. Some sued Ridgestone. Some begged me to let them stay. I made one offer. "If you want to stay," I said, "you buy the land under your house, at fair market value, and you dissolve the HOA forever." Half of them accepted. The rest moved out. By the end of summer, Meadow Ridge wasn't a subdivision anymore. It was a collection of private homes on private land, just like it should have been. The gate was removed. The cameras were gone. The road was mine again. One evening, I stood at the highest point of the ranch, watching the sun drop behind the hills. 2,000 acres. Quiet. Free. The HOA had tried to swallow my land with paperwork, fences, and fear. But in the end, all they did was expose themselves. They thought people would protect them. They didn't realize the truth would destroy them. Now when I ride past what used to be Meadow Ridge, it doesn't feel like an invasion anymore. It feels like justice, because no matter how many houses you build, you can't build them on something that was never yours. And this ranch? It finally belongs to me.